Hey guys, welcome to part 3 of where GoldPesa price will be in 10 years. If you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, you can go back and check our channel. It might be a good idea to do that as we go through step by step, simulating the entire GoldPesa ecosystem so that we get a good understanding of how all the smart contracts are talking to each other, how price is impacted by demand, and how we create tokenomics in order to drive a very healthy mass adoption for this very intelligent form of money. So in part 1 and part 2, we discussed just generally what would happen if GoldPesa was launched on Uniswap V4 and the market simply bought and sold like any other token, like a meme coin or like anything else that you see. Of course, with Uniswap V4, the benefit is that you have concentrated liquidity, and what that means is what you needed a lot of money before, you can do with a lot less money with Uniswap V4 and still get the same effect, which prevents from a lot of the volatility and a lot of the price drops that you see in a general meme coin. Then in part 2, we talked about the GoldPesa Mines and how and why we implemented such a gamified staking inside of our ecosystem and hard-coded that, and the effect that that has on our ecosystem as we grow the project, grow mass adoption, and how it affects the price. So I would definitely have a look at that. And now we are going to discuss the Pawn smart contract and why we implemented a 0.25% fee into the Pawn smart contract. And that is hard-coded anytime GoldPesa is bought or sold or transferred, and how that affects our price and how it affects our entire model for the next 10 years as a GPX token. So something to get into just before that, we're going to just discuss a little bit about normally what happens when a token is launched. Let's just move to the side. Actually, let's go to the side here. Let's go here. So normally what happens when a token is launched, you sort of get this sort of effect. Now, normally, like anything else, when something is just about launched, you get a lot of people that come in early and they sort of buy at this range here, right? And what this is this is basically price. So let's say that this was $1 price, and let's say here this is $100. So what ends up happening is a lot of people end up buying here at this $1 price, and they end up selling at $100. And what they end up doing is they end up draining all the people who have bought in this range, which then we call a rug pull, right? A lot of people buying at this price, wait till it gets to $100, dumps it, and drains out all of this money, and it goes back down to $2, $3, $4. And this is the fundamental problem in most of the tokens that are launched because of liquidity issues. And a lot of people try and get in here. Sometimes it's the founders of the project. Sometimes it's members or developers in the project where the owners don't even know that they have bought. And sometimes it's just the public that just buy a lot, because when you buy something that is fair launched at the starting price of $1, there are no tokens out there to sell into the pool. So you get a really good bet that it's either going to get your money back minus fees, or you're going to make a lot of money. And this is why fair launch tokens have something called snipers, and they have bots that are programmed just to jump into these projects when they first are deployed, because the upside is so big and the downside is very, very limited. And of course, if you're early, that's where this entire game is, whether it's the crypto market, whether it's a stock market, whether it's the oil market, it just doesn't matter. When you're early into something, when it's launched, there are no tokens or no stock or nothing out there in the world to sell into that pool, which creates a very high upside and very low downside risk, especially if liquidity is managed properly. So when we see this as a problem, we sort of ask ourselves, how do we prevent all of this from happening, and how do we design our model so that ultimately we end up getting a much better ecosystem. Now, if we were to turn this around, which is sort of what we want with GoldPesa, is we want to create something like this, right? And we effectively want this, at this point, we want this price that's okay. Effectively, what we want is we want this to be at $1, and when it reaches $100, everything's upside down, but that's all right. Let's just turn this around here. There you go. This is around here. All right. So we got this at $1, and then this here is $100. So what we effectively want to do is we want to create this sort of a price curve or a liquidity depth where those that are buying at $1 is very small, and when they come and dump it at $100, it drops the price maybe to 90, and not all the way down. So this could be maybe $90. And because the liquidity is so thick up here, the person that bought at $1 and sells at 100, they made 100x on their money. But in dollar terms, that's $100. And because so many people have bought here, when they sell, yes, that person made 100x, but it doesn't dump and wipe out all the price down to here like we did previously. So in GoldPesa, when we look at this model, we think, how do we create the economics and tokenomics of the game in order to get this sort of effect? And that is why in our GPX hook contract, or in GoldPesa liquidity protocol, we created a demand-based release of supply. So as the price is moving higher and higher, we are releasing more and more supply into the market proportional to demand. Whereas Bitcoin is time-based release of supply. Every 10 minutes it releases more Bitcoin, whether the market is ready for it or not. In our case, we've created it as a demand-based release of supply. The demand is not there. We do not enter new supply into the market. Otherwise, you get a supply shock and you get a lot of volatility in the price, which is good. And it's also bad because you lose sentiment and you lose this faith and strength of the people as a really advanced form of money. So this is our objective as a company on how do we create these mechanics and how do we release that supply. So just to touch on that for a minute, if we go to our code, you can see that inside of the smart contracts, let's put that here. You can see that in the GPX smart contract, we initially, let me just make this a bit bigger here. So you can see that we mint the entire supply, and the mint is an internal function. So you can go here and you can see it's an internal function. That means that this can only be called once and not externally after the contract has been deployed. If you mint the entire fixed supply, which is 100 million tokens, and you mint it all into the GLP, and GLP is effectively the GoldPesa liquidity protocol, which is this contract here. So you will see that the entire supply of 100 million is minted and placed into the custody of this robot, which we call the GoldPesa Hook Smart Contract, or GLP. And we initially start the liquidity with 100,000 tokens. Before we were simulating at 1 million, but we start with 100,000 tokens as the initial liquidity. And then as we gain demand and as we moved the range from $1 to $2 to $3 at the bottom end, so what happens is if we go back here, as we increase this range and we move the range a little bit higher to here, and this becomes $2, it's like sort of trickling new GPX into the market every time the range floor moves higher. And that is how we create this sort of a depth in our liquidity pool, and we get the desired effect. So let's dive into that a little bit further. And what we're going to do is we are going to do this live so that all of our thought process and the way that we are thinking about this problem, so that we can make sure that all of our economics are sound and designed properly, and you can follow through that logic. So GoldPesa, we're going to go into now, zoom out here, zoom back in. This is where we're at. So when we look here at the Pawn smart contract, the Pawn smart contract effectively has the following functions. So the first thing is, if we go to the contract here, and you can actually see it on the GoldPesa site. So go into GoldPesa site, and if we go under the FAQ, this whole website is going to be changed shortly. But if we look here and it says, what does the Pawn smart contract do? So the Pawn smart contract has these 4 functions, and this is what it does. The Pawn smart contract performs these functions. It collects, well, it's actually 0.25%, so we've got to change that. Fee anytime GPX is bought, sold, or transferred. It facilitates the conversion of GPO to GPX. It accumulates profits generated by the pawn in USDC, and it continuously buys GPX tokens from Uniswap. So we designed this smart contract in such a way that it performs these 4 functions in order to give us a much stronger ecosystem. So let's talk about the first one. Collect 0.25% fee anytime GPX is transferred. That's here. That's actually bought, sold, or transferred. Bought, sold, or transferred. So that's shown here. Then it facilitates the conversion of GPO tokens to GPX. So the way it does that is, we can put it perhaps here. This is the GoldPesa vault. Okay, and in the vault, what happens is GPX tokens go here. Okay, so this happens on a one-to-one basis. One GPX is converted into one GPO, so GPO to GPX. It accumulates profits generated by the pawn in USDC. So we'll explain that here for a minute. Okay, so what happens here is dollars are placed into here. That's a one-way injection of dollars. So we'll get into the Pawn AI algorithm, which is really what makes GoldPesa very, very unique. And we'll get into how we've done that in part 4. But for now, assume that the Pawn AI algorithm, which is proprietary to GoldPesa and very, very, very difficult and has taken us over 20 years to build, generates a profit. And we take that profit, we convert it to USDC, and we simply transfer it into the Pawn smart contract, which takes care of the accumulation of profits generated by the pawn in USDC. And then it continuously buys GPX tokens from Uniswap. So the next phase of this is that it takes the dollars and it comes here, buys GPX. So we can say USDC to GPX, right? is a conversion. Actually, what we can do is, so you can say USDC goes there. GPX is here. So USDC goes in and buys GPX, puts GPX back in the smart contract. GPX goes into the vault and GPO comes here. And the last part of this, which is not mentioned here, is that let's take this here. Okay. So here, so you can see the whole ecosystem. So GPO, after it does that, is there, and USDC is there. So this is exactly all of the moving parts that move into the GoldPesa smart contract, the Pawn smart contract. And just expand on this a little bit so you can get a good idea what's happening here. Right. And these are big enough here so you can see. So this is all of the flow of tokens that interact with the Pawn smart contract. So the one thing for now, which we'll cover in part 4, is to understand why we created GPO. For now, there are 2 tokens, GPO and GPX. In part 4, we will go into GPO in detail, and we'll call this here the GPX market. And over here, we will call this the GPO market, and we'll get into that in part 4 and how that whole thing works. Right. So. All right. Just make it bigger. All right. So now, how do we simulate all of this to see how this entire functionality affects the price of GPX? So what we're going to do now is we are going to go and look at the smart contract. Okay. Save that. It's 100,000. We'll have a look now at the what are we going to look at here? Sorry, I'll move that over for a sec. There is the pawn. There's the vault. There's the GPO. Okay. So the very first thing that we need to do is, if we look at the GPO smart contract, the GPO smart contract is a simple ERC20 token. You can see it's just an ERC token. There's no owner. It's also trustless, immutable, decentralized, just like everything else in the GoldPesa ecosystem. And here we can see that the fixed supply is 100 million. And similar to GPX, we can see that as soon as we create and deploy this token called GoldPesa option, we mint the entire supply to the message sender, which is, in this case, the GPX hook contract or GPO hook contract, which effectively calls and creates this token here, as you can see, where we deploy the GPO token from inside of the GPX hooks contract. So what ends up happening is the GPO hook contract contains all of the 100 million tokens, and we'll get into this in part 4 a little bit more in detail. But for now, you can just assume that the entire supply goes into the hook contract and then is deployed into the Uniswap liquidity pool and remains there forever. and we'll get into the details of GPO and the GPX hook contract in part 4. So that is the GPO token for now. So what we can do in order to start simulating this is, the first thing we want to do is we want to create in our simulation. So we have here GPO, which is created here as an ERC20 token. It's got GPO, got 100 million supply, and you can see we've done it exactly the same as it is in the smart contract because we're simulating it, and it mints to the GPO hook contract, which is passed into here, and then it is the fixed supply of 100 million. So we have a GPX hook contract, but we don't have a GPO hook contract. So let's create that. Just copy this. We'll create GPO hook contract. We'll just take this. Copy that. Okay. They're not the same, but at least we don't have to keep doing that. Okay, so now this is called GPO hook. We know that the supply is 100 million. We know that this hook has a 10%. We know that the pool ID is GPO USD. So 100 million, tick max. Okay, that's good. We know the pool manager is the same. So if we go and check the smart contract here, maybe we can do this side by side. Try and make this bigger. Okay, so the GPX hooks contract. So we know here has a 10% fee, 100 million, 100 million. That's okay. Now we know there's a pool manager. That's fine. We know USDC is there. That's fine. We don't need on smart contract for this. We don't need the mines. Multisig wallet here is there, but we will use it the same as the fund wallet. So what we could maybe do is we can create a GPO fund wallet, which we will make it different than the fund wallet we were using before. So we don't need mines, we don't need the pawn. GPO fund wallet. Okay. So let's think about this for a second. In this case, we have the GPO token. All we need is the hook contract. Let's just double check. Because that contract gets passed in there. So here we've got to from GPO import GPO. That's fine. Let's do this a bit thicker so you can see. Okay, so the pool manager is there, the USDC is there, and the GPO fund wallet is there. So of course, as a fund wallet, we can just create another one of these here, GPO fund wallet. That I can call this GPO fund wallet. It's basically just a smart contract for now, so we can simulate this. Then we got the fund wallet, that's fine. Okay, so here we're going to create a GPO token, which only needs the hook contract as the pass-in, and we don't need anything else. Okay. Just need to pass in the hook, so we're just passing in, not even address, or passing in the hook itself, and then hook.address there. Okay, so that's fine, and we'll call this GPO, so GPX. Market cap is 0. So next thing we are going to do is we are going to create the GPO USDC pool. So we're going to have the pool ID, which is there. We're going to have GPO, which is there. And if you go to the pool manager, we can see the create pool takes in the pool ID, currency 0, which is GPO, USDC, which is currency 1, the fee in our case, which is 1%, in the GPX's case, and it's 10% in that case there, because that fee is there. Then we need the tick spacing, which is 1, which is the same. The tick that you're starting on, which is 0, and then the hook, which is the hook itself, which is this hook. That's fine. Now we're going to add liquidity. So add liquidity takes in the pool ID. That's fine. It takes in lower tick and upper tick. So lower tick is 0, upper tick is tick max. So people ask, often what is a tick? So I can just quickly show you is in Uniswap V4, they use the formula. Actually, I've got it here somewhere. So the price of an asset on Uniswap V4 is simply 1.0001 to the power of I, and I is ticks in this situation. So here, if you have 0, then you know that the starting price or the bottom range is 1. And then if you have tick max, which is 887272, this is the highest price, which is as good as infinity, because the price of GoldPesa option getting to there is not possible, but you still have to place the range between $1 and infinity, because we're starting the price at $1. So that's what this is here. And if we go here, we are doing exactly that. In this case, it's a GPO total supply. GPO total supply. So we're starting at liquidity from 0 to infinity. We're going to start with token 0 amount, which is how much GPO there is. That's the whole 100 million. We're going to have no USDC initially, and then we are going to have the spender in this case, which is the current hook contract itself. And here we go. We've got a GPO hook contract getting ready. GPO, 100 million tokens. That's fine. That's fine. Market cap 0 is fine. We're creating GPO. We're creating the pool, which is pool ID, which is fine. GPO, which is fine, fine. And then we've got currency 0, currency 1. We've got a fee of 10%. Tick spacing is 1. 0 is the initial price, which is $1, and tick 0 is $1. And then we are passing in this hook contract itself. So now we want to just fetch GPO like this, so we can access the GPO variable. So if we want to remove and add liquidity, now in the GPO hook contract that we've done, we place liquidity from $1 to infinity, and we never ever change the liquidity inside of Uniswap V4 for GPO USDC. So this was more necessary before because of GPX. We do rebalance, but in this case we don't, so we can simply just remove that. We will never modify the liquidity once we've created it. Now we want to get the market cap, so we can get the market cap, which is this variable here, which is fine. We can change that later. We set the market cap, that's fine. Before swap hook contract, which is every swap Let's say some pool manager. So what we want to do is we want to collect the fee, in this case in USDC, from every single swap. So this is where we make sure that the only address that can call this is the pool manager itself. Otherwise, we raise an exception. Initially, we set the fee to 0, which is fine. And for now, what we are going to do is we are going to just assume that the fee is the amount specified, and then you have the fee on swap, which is 10%. And in this case, we don't send anything to the pawn, we don't send anything to the mines, and we're gonna just send the entire 10% fees through the GPO fund wallet, in which case we have GPO transfer from the spender to the GPO fund wallet address. GPO fund wallet address, in this case it's going to be fund wallet. Can even remove that. Just gonna take the old fee distributed before swap from spender. Okay, so what we're doing is we're saying that anytime GPO is bought or sold on Uniswap, we are calling this before swap function so that we can collect our 10% fee on swap, which is inbuilt into the GPO smart contracts as part of our model. And so we are just handling that. So, okay. SDC. Okay, so what we're doing is we're saying that we're swapping GPO for USDC in this case. So what we want to do is we want to take the fee in USDC. So every time we make a swap, we take the fee in USDC and not in GPO terms. In which case, actually, we can create this before swap function. And we can say that if so what's different with this is that we are going to think about this. We're going to take the fee always in GPO or in dollars. That's what I'm thinking about right now. And ultimately, if we take the fee in GPO, then that is not good, because then the market would be worried that we would sell our GPO into the market at a later date, which almost creates a whale. So I think it would be better for this simulation for us to first take the fees in GPO, in which case what would happen is we can just simply remove this here. We have after swap, we can remove this here. It's not there. We are not ever rebalancing in this case. We're never checking the rebalance. We're never checking if there's enough. We're never checking any of this. That's all applies to GPX. So in this case, we've got a before swap and after swap. So very simple hook contract, which says that every swap in is exact in. So we make sure that's there. We make sure the fee is 0 first. So if the swap is from GPO to USDC, then we should do nothing. Else we are going to assume here that the swap swap is from USDC to GPO, in which case we will take the fee, which is here. So we will never ever take a fee if it's swapping. So if it's not 0 for 1, then we effectively are doing the same thing here, which is 1 for 0, so it's USDC to GPO. So if this is false, then we are swapping USDC for GPO, in which case we are going to take the amount in USDC, times it by 10, divided by 100, that gives us the fee, and then we're going to transfer that fee from this contract or from the spender to the fund wallet address, and we are going to say GPO fee distribution before swap is the fee, and we'll return the fee. So we're basically just saying that if we are going to swap from dollars to GPO, or the market is going to do that, we're going to take the 10% fee in the before swap hook, and then in the after swap hook, we are only going to take the fee if it is actually there, and we can remove that. We can remove that. In fact, we can just take this here. Just copy it there, because that's pretty easy. So in this case, if this is true, and we're swapping GPO USDC, in which case after the swap is done, if it's 0 to 1, we're going to calculate this fee, the amount specified, which is going to be the amount of USDC, and then we are going to transfer to the fund wallet the fee. That should be fine. All right, so we've got our hook, which is being created, and our hook creates our GPO token, which is great. And then we should have the market cap, the before swap, make sure the submission set to 0. All right. Just to be clear, that's there. Then we have no issues here. All right. So that is our hook contract simulated, which is our GPO hook contract, and it should be exactly the same as this. Okay. Now, what we need to do, we need to go to our simulations, and we know that we have created a GPX. Now we're just gonna create an instance of the GPO hooks contract, right? Hooks equals GPO hooks. Goes there. And we are passing in the pool manager. We are passing in USDC. And we want to, before we do that, we need to create instance of the GPO fund wallet. Fund wallet, which we can just put maybe in here. I can then create an instance of this. I don't think there's much to do there, it's just create. Okay, then we go to GPO fund wallet. All right, got to import the hooks. Oh, that's right, GPO. All right. Okay, so we created an instance of the fund wallet, which we created. That's going to collect the 10% fee in USDC. Then we are going to create an instance of GPO hooks contract, and the GPO hooks contract we're passing in the pool manager USDC and the GPO fund wallet, pool manager USDC in the fund wallet. Market cap, as soon as we create that, we then create a GPO token. So what we want to do is we just want to capture the instance of that, get instance of GPO that was created inside the GPO hooks, right? It tells us GPO hooks dot GPO. So we just have to grab this. So this should be that. Okay, so now what we've done is we've created a GPO fund wallet which collects our 10% fee. We've created a hook contract for GPO which simply collects the 10% fee every time there's a swap. It does that in USDC only and not in GPO terms when someone makes a swap. And then we are getting an instance of GPO that was created inside the hook contract, which is here, and we are calling this function here to fetch the GPO token that we deployed inside. So that should be that. Now, okay. So we're just setting up everything in such a way. If we go back to our thing here, what else we got to do? So what ends up happening is we have created the hook contract. We've created this liquidity pool just now. So when the market then buys and sells with this pool, we can handle that. What we haven't put in here is the fund wallet. So we can probably take a copy of that and we can say GPO fund wallet, which is there. Let's move this over here. Group that. And what's happening here is we have a 10% fee on swap only, not on transfer. So with the GPO token, it's only a fee on swap. And that fee on swap in USDC every time, not in GPO, so that we are not collecting GPO tokens and then the market is then worried that we will sell it on them one day at a higher price. We'll just collect it in dollars. So we created the fund wallet. We've created the GPO token itself. We've created the hook contract, which then deployed the liquidity from $1 as we saw here, right? What we've done is $1 is the starting price, which is tick 0 up to, let's just delete this, it's confusing. And this is a really big number. We'll call it infinity, but I'll just say a big number, right? Okay, and that is actually supposed to be the other. We'll just delete that for now. All right, so we're slowly building this out. So now what do we got to do? From now, what we have to do is we have to put one more thing in here. So what happens is the market is buying and selling GPO, and we have placed the liquidity inside of here from 1 to infinity, which means from $1 is the starting price up to infinity. And we equivalent in Uniswap V2, if we were to start the same exact token at the same exact range, we would have needed $100 million inside of Uniswap V2. Today with Uniswap V3, we're able to deploy this without that $100 million and still get that same amount of liquidity, which means tomorrow, if an institution or a high net worth client or a big buyer or a whale wants to buy $10 million worth of GPO, they can. GPX, it'll be very hard because we're only starting with 100,000 tokens and a very thin liquidity. You would have a huge price impact. And so in GPO, it's for big buyers, and GPX is for small buyers. And the reason we did that, because it was important that many big buyers enter the ecosystem and have a way to enter the ecosystem without the risk of the big buyers dumping on the small guys. And so this is why we created this system of GPO and GPX. GPO for big buyers and GPX for small buyers. And effectively, GPO for big buyers allows them to enter the ecosystem with a large amount and allows them to systematically convert their GPO into GPX on a one-to-one basis using this mechanism here. So what ends up happening is that somebody who wants to buy GPO will say, okay, I'm going to go to Uniswap, I'm going to buy a GPO. I'm going to pay a 10% fee when I buy it. Then when I take my GPO, I'm going to go to the market and I can either decide I can buy and sell as I feel, which is they're free to do that because inside of here, that liquidity is locked forever. GoldPesa, I don't have any control. No one has control on that forever. So that liquidity is always there. If you bought $10 million of GPO, your $10 million sit inside of this contract. And then what happens here now is you now have the option as a GPO holder to place and stake your GPO inside of the GoldPesa vault. So this happens like this here, where you can stake GPO inside Gold, and we can just say stake GPO, right? All right. So this is the flow. Let's just call it GPO so that you can see clearly. This is effectively staked. So this GPO goes into the vault, and then it is then slowly converted over. Well, slowly, it depends on how much volume and how everything moves. The pawn smart contract takes the GPX, puts it into the vault, and collects the GPO on a one-to-one basis. And that is when you exercise your option and convert your GPO into GPX. So what I will do is I will now go into this a little bit deeper. And what we need to do next is we need to create the simulation of the GoldPesa vault, and we can maybe pause and break this video up into small segments. So that is part 3 of simulating the entire GoldPesa ecosystem. And we will come back and we will continue onwards, and we will start creating the GoldPesa vault and the pawn smart contract. And then we will start putting all the pieces together and see how it affects the GoldPesa GPX price as our ultimate goal. So that's it for part 3, and subscribe to this channel for part 4 and to see exactly where the GPX price will be in 10 years. All right, that's all for now.